Joining me today are Dr. Christina Phillips, who's the Associate Director of the Office of College Programs. Christina is actively involved in the Keep Learning team, which is part of UM's COVID response. And also here is Kevin Gates, coordinator of Study USA. Kevin and I are both graduates of the Experiential Education Academy that's facilitated by the National Society for Experiential Education. And Kevin and Christina are both currently serving on the conference planning committee for that organization. So before we get started, we want to know a little bit about you. And I would like to know, I'm going to launch a poll here. First of all, have you taught a Study USA course before? So if you can kind of just weigh in on that. Okay, I'm going to share the results with you. We have a few of you have, and so we thank you, and we're glad to see you here. And then 14 newcomers to Study USA. My next question for you is, which mode of Study USA will work for the kind of class that you might be envisioning? And if you're not to that point of envisioning a class, that's fine. A travel class exclusively, where you physically travel to a particular location, virtual, where you'll be using Zoom, Blackboard, and other platforms, some sort of hybrid maybe that has a virtual component and ideally a travel component, or are you really flexible? Are you interested in planning a travel class, but designing it so that, you know, if we find out or if the travel restrictions change one way or the other, you can go back and forth and still offer it to the students. So you can choose as many of those as apply to what you're kind of thinking. Okay, I'm going to share the results with y'all. So I'm glad to see that a lot of people are interested in kind of exploring this virtual model. We'll revisit this question at the end after we've talked to you a little bit about some of the ideas behind Virtual Study USA. So you will see that question again. And let me get back to my PowerPoint. I am now going to turn things over to Dr. Christina Phillips, who is our resident expert on experiential learning theory.
Thank you, Laura. As Dr. Antonellis mentioned, the term experiential learning is in the title of our presentation. She mentioned it a couple of times in her introduction. Some of you may be familiar with the term and others may not be. So I'm going to share what experiential learning theory is and how it applies to our Virtual Study USA program. So KOLB'S experiential learning theory was started and first published by David Kolb. He is known as the founder and the creator of it. And he describes experiential learning as the process where students create knowledge through the transformation of experience. So in other words, knowledge results from the combination of grasping and transforming experience and actually doing something. This model is holistic and it's a cycle model. The theory places a strong emphasis on the role that experience plays in the learning process. So again, experiences are kind of the foundation for learning in the experiential theory. Learning, as we all can imagine, is a constant process where we're not really focused on not necessarily a specific skill, but we're focused on the outcome of the experience and the application of knowledge. So using what you know and actually applying it to some type of real world application. In this model, experiential learning theory, again, knowledge and ideas are not fixed. We can continue to shape and transform our knowledge through our experiences. So again, this is a continuous cycle, and we will always encounter and experience new ideas and concepts to help shape our knowledge. So that's just kind of experiential learning theory in a nutshell. Going a little bit deeper into the theory and to give you a little bit more context about the 4 stages of experiential learning theory, we first start with that concrete experience. That's where we begin. Is something specific that you experience that you're a part of. It could be something hands-on. It could be a physical, kind of tangible experience like our traditional Study USA program. And again, that's where students are traveling and doing something, whether it's interviewing professionals in their field or digging around mounds for archaeological samples and artifacts. But you can also get these kind of concrete experiences through virtual learning and online formats. And this is what we're introducing today. We're introducing our new Virtual Study USA program that you can absolutely get some hands-on experience by presenting the course in an online format. To make sure the course that you're offering or proposing is experiential, again, you want to start with that concrete experience, have your students do something. One of the, we move into reflective observation, and that's really critical for experiential learning. Once students have that experience, you want them to process, starting with reflection. So what did they experience? Reflecting on what happened in that kind of hands-on experience. After reflection, you move into abstract conceptualization, where that's where you kind of start synthesizing and begin to kind of form your own understandings based off of the reflections that you made from the concrete experience. And then finally, you move into active experimentation, where again, you're testing and verifying and trying out all the things that you learned prior in this process. So like I mentioned before, this is a cycle. We come to draw conclusions about our knowledge through the experiences that we gain, and every time we have a new experience, we're building upon our knowledge. So you may be thinking, why is this important? Why is this central to what we're doing? We want to be sure that classes offered through Study USA are meaningful and are promoting engaged and continuous learning. Again, we use the term experiential learning a lot in our office, but in other places on our campus, you might see more of engaged learning opportunities. They're really similar to experiential learning, and in a nutshell, again, you want to be sure that you're promoting this cycle of reflection and synthesizing and getting, trying things out. And I really, if you don't get anything else from this theory, we're not expecting everybody to be an expert in theory, but just again, the point I want to drive home is that you can get experiential learning through virtual formats. Another reason we feel like this is relevant is this is closely aligns with our current QEP, which is centered around critical thinking. So as you're thinking about maybe proposing a Study USA class, keeping experiential learning in mind, just remember that this will definitely support the current QEP initiatives. And we really want to be sure, as you're going through the design process and the proposal process, that you remember that we want students to have experiences, we want them to reflect on them, start synthesizing them, and then putting them into action. If you are interested in planning a Study USA course, our office helps you with that process. We'll sit down with you, have meetings, have planning meetings to talk through what you want your class to look like. But before you meet with us, we want you to kind of consider these things and have a general idea of what you want to offer. A little bit later on in the presentation, Kevin's going to talk to you about how to officially propose a class and how to go through the process and get the appropriate approvals. But before you start that process with Kevin or me or Laura, we want you to kind of generally think about when you want your class to take place. Generally, our Study USA classes happen over intersession terms. With the university moving forward in response to COVID, that might look different and can fall in different places within the semester, but generally think about when you want your class to take place. You want to make sure your topic is something relevant to your field, relevant to your department and your expertise. And we, as Laura shared before, we want you to really think about, do you want to offer it online? Do you want to offer a hybrid model where maybe some of it's online and some of it's on location if we're allowed to move forward with travel in the upcoming semester? Or perhaps you maybe want to wait until all the travel restrictions are lifted and you can take your class on a specific location. All of this is okay, and again, we'll help you plan through this process, but these are things that we want you to think about before you come and meet with us. We also, again, want you to make sure that your course and its assignments are experiential, and we can also help you with that as well. As Laura mentioned, Kevin and I are involved with the National Society of Experiential Education, so even if we don't have specific answers for you, we can help get you connected to maybe other universities and other resources to bring your ideas to fruition. So Kevin, again, is going to talk a little bit more about what our traditional Study USA has looked like and what we're changing for virtual Study USA. And then Laura is going to provide some examples of how you can provide those experiences in virtual format. So she's going to share some of the platforms that could be used to make sure that students have an experience, even if your Study USA course is offered virtually.
Good afternoon, everybody. So just to give a little bit more background for those of you that haven't taught with Study USA before, prior to COVID-19, Study USA, I think, we had a very good system laid out where we, would have professors take students for 1 to 2 weeks somewhere across the country. Our courses generally, there were some exceptions to this, but generally our courses were around 10 students. And then there would be around a $1,000 course fee, where that course fee would pay for most of the students' travel expenses, things like all of their housing, some or all of their meals, their ground transportation while they were studying with us, and then whatever activities that they would do while they were on site. And that's, where we're going to get back to eventually, but that is traditionally what a Study USA course would look like. Currently, and what we're looking at doing for, this winter, or at least adding for this winter, are these virtual Study USA courses. The neat things with the virtual classes are they're not necessarily going to be location specific. For example, this is, you see here, a screen capture from a Zoom meeting with Dr. Watkins' course that he taught for us in June, where students were meeting with the mayors of Tupelo, Starkville, and Oxford, something that if he had taken his class as originally planned to Washington, D.C., he probably wouldn't have been able to have all 3 of those speakers in the class. These courses are also not necessarily going to be time specific. So, traditionally our courses have been, about 2 weeks in length, maybe 1 week on site, and then, 1 week either before or after travel, where, you're in the classroom getting ready and then going. For these new virtual courses, it may be where you have more sporadic meetings spread out over, a full summer course. It's very much going to be determined on what works best for you and your course. These virtual classes can also give you more opportunities for global connections. It goes kind of hand in hand with not being location specific, but when you're able to draw experts from across the country, you may also be able to add in some experts from around the world. This summer we had speakers from all over the US, but then we also had some from Australia and Vietnam that spoke to our students. And all of that goes into what really, is what we're going to hope sets Virtual Study USA experiences apart, which is making it an engaged online course. Whether that is having students create some sort of deliverable where they have to come up with, a project to solve a major problem, or whether it is a research proposal that the students have to come up with for their course, or even in the case of a geological engineering course that's planning and going to be starting next week, actually having students doing remote field work where you give them the tools and then they do it as part of the course. These are all kind of the various things where, if we think outside of the box, you can come up with ways to get students engaged with the material, even though it is a virtual and remote course. All of that goes to say, because the students aren't going to be traveling, we also think that these could make our courses much more accessible to students because there's going to be a much smaller or even no course fee. The courses that we've run so far this summer, there have been no course fees associated with them because they've been, truly fully online. There was a conference that some of the students attended, but there was no cost associated with that conference for the students. And so basically, these virtual courses are really a way that we can kind of tear down some of the barriers to access. Students not having to travel to DC in order to speak with a congressman, or not having to go to 3 different cities to speak with different mayors. So really, it's an opportunity to open doors if we allow it to be. And kind of going in with that, Study USA, we have some things that we're very good at. And traditionally that has been our logistics planning. We work with, for our traditional courses where they're travel courses, we work with our instructors to make sure that they have everything set up before they travel so that when they arrive on scene, they can jump right into their course. So all of the hotel arrangements can be done ahead of time. All of the meal reservations can be made ahead of time. Anything that we can prepay will be prepaid. We're going to bring that into our virtual offerings. With the logistics that we've done for some of our virtual courses so far, for one of the courses, we were very involved in getting the speakers actually scheduled. So, the instructor was able to identify the speakers that they wanted to be part of the course, and then we were able to reach out to those individuals and get all of that scheduled so that the instructor just had to worry about being in class and then knowing that their speakers were going to be there when it came time for them to speak to the course. And that's something that we could do for anyone planning one of these courses in the future. As well as, if there are things that we need to ship to your students, that's something else that we can take care of for you. So you're really only having to worry about the instruction and not the nuts and bolts of how that's going to come together. For student scholarships, Study USA has a fund that we have available for students that are taking our courses. And that will still be available even if we aren't offering travel courses. So instead of our scholarship going to, maybe reduce the cost for that course fee for students, we're going to have those monies available so that, it can actually go towards the regular tuition. So those scholarships are $250 to $750, depending on the student's need. So that could greatly, it could pay for more than half of one of these courses for students. Another thing that we do is we do pay for all of the travel for our instructors for our traditional courses. And so if we have instructors that are needing to make, a site visit in preparation for a virtual course, we can still offer that travel funding. We would still have to go through all of the hoops with some of the travel restrictions we have in place. So, if you have to have a site safety plan, those sorts of things, we can help you navigate that, but then we can also help fund that so it's not coming out of departmental funds for your travel. some of the other things that we do really well is we are very involved in the marketing and promotion of our courses. I'll talk more about this when we get to forms and actually proposing a course, but part of kind of the onboarding for Study USA is the conversations we have with instructors where we really get a feel for what you're going to offer. And then in turn, we can go with our marketing department and promote your course and promote it in a way that students know what they're getting into and know what your course is going to be. That way they're not surprised when they get enrolled, but at the same time, it also helps us pull the students that are going to be interested and going to be more interested in actually interacting with the material you're presenting. Now, that's not to say that we do all of the promotion. Semester in and semester out, we do find on our post-course surveys that instructors really have a big part in the students that sign up for our courses. We will help generate the tools to promote your course and give them to you. But if you do, teach a course for us, it's very much going to be, about you promoting it as well as us. Kind of hand in hand with that promotion, though, is the enrollment that we do for you as well. Students sign up for Study USA courses through a online application portal. With that online application portal, we kind of take care of getting the dean's approval for students to take part in our courses. We make sure that students get booked into the course. We make sure that all the scholarships are put onto their account if they need to be. So we do all of that. So it's also something else that is, kind of makes it easier on your home department, is that, these courses, we are taking care of the enrollment management for you. And then Laura's going to talk more about this in just a second, but the Blackboard and course planning support kind of goes hand in hand with the logistics that we take care of for you. But with these virtual experiences, we are very open to working with you to get your Blackboard course set up if you're using Blackboard, to help you, find the other tools if you're wanting to use something like Panopto or some other format that's out there. We are very open to helping you figure out how to incorporate that into the course and helping you make that be as successful as possible. All in all, we very much, are about partnering with you and making sure that, we have the tools for you to be successful and making sure that you know how to use those tools to be as successful as possible.
So with course planning, much of our course planning is similar to any course that you would be developing. There's a central theme. You develop learning objectives. You start putting together your course content. Blackboard is obviously going to be play a big role in virtual classes. There may be complementary platforms like Kevin mentioned that we will incorporate: Zoom, Google Classrooms, Panopto. And tying into that, we have an instructional designer. We have a new instructional designer coming on board in the Office of College Programs in the next 2 weeks, and she will be available to consult with about additional platforms that might be particularly effective for the type of class and the material that you're trying to cover and the engagement that you're trying to create with your students. I'm going to talk about, obviously this is a new avenue for all of us, and we've seen some really interesting results from our first two virtual Study USA classes, and we have a third one that's running during August intersession. But really the sky's the limit as far as thinking about tools to bring in to make these classes really engaging and dynamic for the students. And so I'm going to talk about five different ideas that we've been kind of either using or batting around of ways to make these experiential learning opportunities work. The first is the idea of virtual conferences. As you all know, many conferences are going virtual, and some are offering both live sessions or access to recorded sessions. So students can attend either as a group with the professor, if the professor screen shares a particular session, or independently, and then kind of come back together to reflect on what was covered in the sessions. And Dr. Holland will talk a little bit about using, kind of incorporating a virtual conference into a course shortly. Another is expert and professional guest speakers. This was mentioned earlier, but I can't stress enough what an amazing opportunity this is to get high profile, interesting experts and professionals in front of your students where they are almost having a one-on-one conversation with them with both a presentation and Q&A. It can be really energizing for the students. It could be researchers, guest faculty from another institution, industry professionals, alumni in the particular field of study. And we're happy to help facilitate some of those. Scheduling, yes, like Kevin mentioned, but we also, you know, if you have ideas about topics that you are interested in covering, we might be able to suggest some additional resources for that. The third are virtual site visits. And given COVID and everybody's interest in going places, even if it's just virtually, there are some amazing, very high quality site visits and videos that even 360-degree videos that you can incorporate into your class. The one that's streaming right now is actually from the National Park Service in Yellowstone. There's several virtual visits like that, field experiences, cultural sites. In the lower left is this incredible 360-degree tour of the Temple of Dendur at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So you could have students visit museums all over the world during a virtual Study USA class. It could be professional venues. The middle image is a great tour of the NIH, both the facilities, the campus, and the little bit about the history of the NIH. So really, we're happy to do some footwork and help find some of these resources for you to use if you just kind of point us in the right direction. The next one is class collaborations, and this has happened in a few of our in-person Study USA classes where a faculty member will partner with a faculty member and a class at another institution, and the faculty will kind of pair up their areas of expertise, but then the students will also work together on projects and share insights. So that's something that can happen readily with Virtual Study USA. And the final is, and there's been reference made to this, field work or field experiences. You know, when all of this started happening, one of the classes that was, you know, really on my mind for Study USA were our geological engineering field schools. These are required classes in the School of Engineering. Students needed this to graduate, and we're like, what are we going to do? Well, the faculty and chair of geological engineering stepped up, and GE 301 is creating a class that basically allows students to gain skills that are typically acquired during their summer field school, but they're doing it in their own backyard. So Doctors Lance Yarborough and Julie Rettram are creating a series of videos teaching students mapping techniques that they're going to put into practice wherever they happen to be. Some students are here in Oxford, but students may be elsewhere still. They also went to their site in Missouri and shot drone footage and collected actual samples to send to the students so that they will have, so they could experience the site, but also have access to materials remotely. And we really look forward to hearing how their class goes and about the student experiences once they complete it during August intersession.
So now more kind of back to how do you actually, how do we actually work with you to make this happen? To actually propose a Study USA course, there are 2 forms that are available on our website under our faculty tab that we'll need you to fill out in order for us to actually put a Study USA course on the books. The first one of those is our course planning form. And this is more about us working with you to help you kind of refine the details of your course. basically we ask that you fill this out before you come to meet with us or meet with us on Zoom, as it were, so that, we can have a good conversation about the course that you're thinking about, and get a good kind of grasp of what it is that you're thinking that you will offer. The other thing that form allows us to do is it allows us to start, setting up our promotions. So we can, take copy from that and turn it into the web text that'll be the website for your course, which is kind of the landing page where students will come to learn about what you're going to be offering. We can give some of that, copy to our marketing team, and they can help us come up with, interesting social media campaigns or actual print campaigns for your class. And all of that comes out of your course planning form. That course planning form will then kind of go into your actual course proposal, which is kind of the actual kind of hoops that we have to jump through in order to get the course offered into SAP. That course proposal, along with your syllabus, is what you will give to your chair and then to your dean for new courses, where you're going to say, this is the course title, this is the course number, this is a syllabus for the course that I'm wanting to offer, and then we'll need your chair if it's a repeat course, or if it is a new course, we would need your chair and your dean to sign off on that. And then at that point, we can put it into SAP and we can start booking students into the course and start offering it. Excuse me. But those are kind of the two things that we absolutely have to have in order to offer a Study USA course. So the timeline, which I'm sure you're all interested in, for winter 2021 courses, if you think that you may want to offer a course with us for winter 21, generally in years past, the deadline for that would have been in April. For this year, because of, sorry, excuse me. For this year, because of COVID and all of the fun wackiness that it has brought into our lives, we're going to push that deadline back to September 15th. And so that September 15th date would be when we would need to have your actual course proposal signed by your chair and dean in hand in our office, or in email online. But it would need to be signed by that point. So if you're thinking about offering something for winter, we do have plenty of time still to work through that. But you need to contact us sooner so we could start, working through that course planning form, and having a conversation about what you're wanting to offer, and making sure that we get, a good kind of grasp on what that class is going to be. For May and summer 2021, those course proposals would be due in October. So, a little more time, but still something that we need to work through rather quickly. And again, with that, we would need the course proposal in hand by October 15th. But, we would like to talk to you, sooner than that. So if you think that you want to offer one of these courses, please reach out to us. StudyUSA@olemiss.edu is our email address for that. And we can start, setting up meetings and having conversations at that point. Even if it's something where you think, well, I don't know if I want to do that for this summer or this winter, if you think you might want to do it for next winter, go ahead and reach out to us now, and we can start having that conversation and kind of fleshing out, what you want to do. One of the things we did talk about as a teaching mode, though, are those conference courses. And a lot of times those fall in either the fall or spring semester. For those, especially if it's a fall semester course, please reach out to us as soon as possible. Same thing for spring. For spring, we have a little more time. It would generally fall to that October 15th date. For fall, that's something where we need to jump on it as quickly as possible. There are, depending on how that course may work, we may have to get provost approval for it, if students may miss some other classes or that sort of thing. So regardless, the big takeaway from this is, if you think you want to teach a Study USA course or maybe interested in some form, please contact us as soon as possible so we can start working with you and getting your course to where it needs to be, so that when you offer it to students, it's perfect.
We've referenced several times that we had a couple of pilot virtual Study USA courses this summer. Both instructors are on the Zoom call right now. Dr. Randy Watkins, he is professor of chemistry and biochemistry, and he taught a science and policy class that was originally set to go to DC, but he successfully transitioned that to a virtual offering. Dr. Jody Holland is an associate professor of public policy leadership, and he successfully facilitated a course that was set to go to Portland, Oregon for an entrepreneurship. And he's also on the call today. And we have a few questions that we're going to ask to, talk with them about how the process of Virtual Study USA worked for them. If you have questions, please add them in the chat and we'll get them. I'll kind of serve as moderator today for the instructors that are going to share about their experience with offering Virtual Study USA. So to get started, I'm going to ask Dr. Holland, I see you on my screen, what went well for your class with both the planning process and the actual facilitation of the course?
Well, for me, and let me know if you can't hear me, I may have connectivity issues, and that's one of the issues you're going to find. The worst issue ever is the connectivity of this whole thing. First, for the planning process, for me, you guys were great. Working with Kevin's fantastic. It was an easy process. Another thing that went well too was I think everybody in the entire country and the world was kind of just figuring out how things would work. So they were willing to connect with us. They saw that there was opportunities, people were at home. So that, I mean, the willingness to be a part of the program was extremely easy and accessible. I can't, for anybody who's wondering, the people who, you're talking about these high level executives or political individuals, access them really is very easy right now for many individuals. Probably will get harder as we move forward, but as at that time, that was a very easy process that I thought. I think the second question I missed.
I'm sorry, say that last part.
Was there a second part to that question? I'm sorry.
Well, just what went well with your course in general, and I think you answered both parts of like planning and the actual facilitation of the class.
I'll say this, and I had it was a virtual conference. We're supposed to go out there for a conference, and then they pivoted to the facilitators of that conference did a fantastic job. So that went well, giving a lot of trust into that.
Great, thank you. So Dr. Watkins is also on this call, and his class was more in the format of expert and professional guest visits. So Dr. Watkins, I'm going to unmute you. Can you also talk about what went well for your class for both the planning process and for the facilitation?
Yeah, sure, I'd be glad to. But for those who are watching this, the first thing that you need to do is work with your department, with your department chair, to get a 300 level sort of generic class on the books. Because first of all, if you don't do that, nobody's going to sign up for it. Okay, so you need a 300 level class. So in my particular case, my class was Chem 393, which was actually something that was proposed a few years ago by my colleague Susan Pedigo, who wanted to do a class about the science of cooking. And so she wanted to go to France and take students to France and teach them about how cooking works and how the science behind that works. But at that time, we didn't really have a 300 level class on the books where that was sort of legit. We did it under individual instruction stuff, but for my colleagues who are in the at the university coming up this fall, get a 300 level, just a generic 300 level class, something like what I did. It's just called advances in chemical education or something like that, so that you have that on the book, so you can do these kind of things, because then when it's approved, you can do all kinds of things in science. And so for me, I quite frankly didn't think this was going to work at all. I mean, I proposed this class back in the fall, and then the COVID outbreak occurred, and the notion, and then Washington D.C., for example, that's where we were going to go, was a disaster. I mean, nobody thought nobody's going to do that, and so. But what happened was actually kind of game changing. I know that's kind of a cliche, but the notion was that we were able to do stuff in my class that you absolutely would not have been able to do with the travel class. We had speakers from Vietnam, we had speakers from Australia, Georgetown, Baltimore. It was just a resounding success, and the students loved it. I mean, we even got the lieutenant governor. I think Laura put up a screenshot earlier of lieutenant governor of Mississippi who talked to our class. And there's no way you could have done all of that stuff and get all those speakers aboard without the current format. So I would really like to encourage people to think about this. And I think the Study USA program is starting to think about this differently. That is, what most of us see in our everyday life as a complete disaster, when it comes to education, it's actually really an opportunity. There's an opportunity here to get speakers to talk to your students that you would never possibly have an opportunity to do. So think about it that way.
Great, thank you for that insight. And that's actually a good segue to my next question. So both Dr. Holland and Dr. Watkins had some really close, engaging interaction with professionals in their fields of study. How did y'all come about approaching and planning out your schedule of speakers, and how did you approach your speakers?
Yeah, I can take that. With the conference I was working with, they're real leaders. They had a speakers bureau that I could reach out to. And then there's another foundation too that fits into the category of leadership and social innovation was the class I was teaching. And they had a speakers bureau too. And I just sent emails and told them what was going on and how we're pivoting. And a group of them were part of the organization. And again, they were very accessible. And it was easy. It was an email. And some of them I had relationships with previously at conferences that I reached out to. So some personal relationships in that. But again, it seemed like at that point, people were just working from home and doing something new, more creative.
Yeah, to echo what Dr. Holland said, I mean, first, two things. One is that I can't speak for him, but I know that I put this class together kind of on the fly because the whole COVID-19 situation changed things, and there was, we had to make a lot of last minute adjustments, but a lot of it was personal contacts that Dr. Holland mentioned. For example, the day 2 of the class, I literally texted a prominent former Congress member at 6 o'clock in the morning to ask if he could speak to my class, and he agreed. And so, at noon that day, we had someone who was very influential speaking to the class. So it does depend a bit on your contacts, right? I mean, who do you know? And I've been thinking about this for a while, and it's sort of like, we have we invite guest speakers all the time to come to the university, to the chemistry department, to give lectures, and they do. We normally put them up in a hotel or take them out to dinner or whatever. That goes on, but I mean, we can't do that now, but the context still applies, that if you contact people who are influential and important speakers, and who are good in the field of whatever you're doing, and you ask them to be on a Zoom meeting, they almost always say, yes, I'll be there. So it really is, in some ways, in my opinion, this is one of the more influential ways of having these kind of classes, of where you have students involved with speakers, with people, whatever, government, industry. You couldn't normally do this, but now you can. So thank you, COVID-19.
I just want to reiterate too. So our office, if you don't feel like you have your own contact list to reach out to people that are in the field or in the content area that you're wanting to teach on, our office can help you with the legwork of making some of those contacts. We have another program within our office that we have a pretty expansive professional network, and we can absolutely spend time to help those that are proposing courses to get in contact with people in their field. So that's something that we offer as a resource in our office, and we're more than happy to help anybody that's proposed a class to get connected with those that are related to the course content. We do have a few more minutes before we run up on the hour. I do want to address some of the questions that have come up in the chat. One question is, if you're selected to teach a Study USA class, does the salary come out of the Study USA budget, or does it come from the budget of the department you work for? So I think Dr. Antonow can speak to that.
Yeah, I'll take that one. We pay the faculty salary and fringe for teaching the class. So any of the instructional costs. Normally when travel is occurring, we also pay the faculty's travel expenses. For some classes, we also can build in paying for some supplies for the students. I'm thinking of maybe some of the anthropology classes or geological engineering classes we've covered, or maybe the biology classes, we've covered some of the supplies too. So yes, to the salary, it does come out of Study USA's budget. So that might be a selling point to your department chairs.
Laura, can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
Will the fact that everything is virtual change the number of students you'll have to get for the course to make, or will it be the same?
That's a good question. I think it actually may go down a little bit.
Okay.
We may have to have fewer students for the class to make. So
Okay.
yeah. Generally, we budget based on 10 students, but we do have some flexibility with our enrollment numbers.
Okay.
The next question that's in the chat, how difficult is it to audit the time requirements to satisfy the College Board for a class?
I'll take that one too. The contact hours are 37.5, just like they are in a live class. And that may seem challenging, but I think Dr. Watkins and Dr. Holland can probably both attest that you spend a lot of time with your students virtually. Then they, depending on how you design your class, they might spend time collaborating together, which can be part of their instructional time. I teach a hybrid class for the School of Education, and so I design it so that some of the time we're together 50% of the time, that is, and the other 50% of the time they are working on projects collaboratively, not just their homework per se, but working on projects collaboratively that they come back then and present on. So there are ways, Dr. Holland, Dr. Watkins, do you have any?
Easier. I think it's tremendously easier because you have the flexibility of just clicking online and, doing you have the flexibility. It doesn't have to be 8 to 12. I mean, I'm looking at a class coming up this fall or in the winter, and we'll probably get those contact hours in 1 week, but the class will extend more than that because of some sporadic meeting spots. But I think it's a lot easier, just to answer the question.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the sticking points for me was, when you first kind of look at this is, you're legally required to spend 37 hours with your students, and it's like, how the hell do you do that with an online class? I mean, it was a bit confusing at first, but what Dr. Holland said is correct, that you can give them writing assignments, and so that you can they're working online, and then you're giving them feedback online. You don't have to spend 12 hours a day with students to do this. You can pull it off. You can get in the contact hours that are legally required by doing things online, like giving them assignments and then grading them later. And you don't have to grade them immediately, as Dr. Holland said. You can go have lunch and then come back and grade. And so it's not as bad as it sounds.
Well, it's very interesting too. Like, I mean, and you'll see this in a lot of classes, but I had a small class, but they were doing a group project and they had a question, and we just jumped online and Zoomed at 6:30 in the afternoon and sat there for an hour and talked. And there's tremendous benefit in this.
Yes, and we have a great deal of flexibility in how you get those hours. As both instructors mentioned, there's a variety of ways you can meet that requirement. So don't let that be a barrier for you. We can help you brainstorm, how to get those hours and how to make sure you're meeting that requirement. We are recording this session and we are planning on putting it on our website. That was the next question in the chat. So it might not be immediately, but if you would like immediate access, just send us an email, studyusa@olemiss.edu, and we can give you immediate access. The next question is, what did the day-to-day synchronous and Zoom contact look like with the courses that were taught this past spring? And this was actually summer. So the follow-up question, or was it not all on Zoom?
So mine were all on Zoom, and we met every day from 9 to 11:15 to 11:30. Let's see, the first week, and then multiple days the second week, and then during the conference that we met 8 hours, and we were just involved in the conference with 350 CEOs, and there was a conference moderator, And then once we were in the conference, I didn't handle anything. I was just a participant in the conference, and really, I learned so much regarding how to utilize Zoom for group meetings, and we probably were thrown into 15 group meetings throughout the day, which was very interesting, because if you're in a conference room with 350 CEOs, how are you going to meet these people and mingle and really get acquainted with them? And what they would do, they would throw us in the meeting rooms for 7 minutes with 5 people, and we would sit there and hash out a question. Well, my students got to do that too. And when the next day we came back and I said, were you intimidated? How did that work? And they said, well, we were just telling them we were students here trying to learn and listen. And then all of a sudden the CEOs were saying, oh, you're students. And they would want to give mentoring advice and talk to them about their lives. And I mean, one individual ended up talking about a breakup and going through relationships, which, it's sweet and, endearing. And it was a great thing and great connection with the CEOs. And they reached out to some of these students later. So it's very interesting when it comes to the format, but a lot of flexibility is my answer on that.
And our staff were actually, we were put in both Blackboard sections of the courses that ran this summer. And so we can help set up those Zoom meetings and help make sure everything kind of aligns with your schedule. So we definitely are available to support in those ways. I accidentally skipped a question in the chat, so I'm sorry about that. But the question is, some conferences are still charging registration fees for virtual events. Could those expenses be covered by student scholarships and/or travel grants? I think Kevin could probably answer, take a shot at this question.
Yeah, so it's going to depend from course to course, depending on what that course fee is, or depending on what the conference fee is. If it's what I would say is nominal, less than $25 to $50 per student, that may just be something that we build into the tuition. If it's $200 or something like that for each student, that's where we would have that course fee come in. Which we generally have charged course fees in the past for all of their students' travel expenses, and so that would be kind of an added cost to the student for the course. But yes, we do have those scholarships where that could pay for and offset that course fee, as it were. So if it's a $100 conference fee that we're charging to the students, and then they qualify for a $250 scholarship, they're net going to be paying, $150 less for a course than they would be during the regular semester.
Laura, do you have anything to add to that, to just how that works with the course fees?
No, I think Kevin covered it. I mean, basically the tuition funds are ours to use for all the instructional costs, and so that's the faculty salary and fringe and any expenses. And so like Kevin said, if we can just build that in and not have it as an additional cost, then we're happy to do that.
Great, thank you. So we're a little bit over an hour. I think I've addressed all the questions in the chat. If I missed something, feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question now. We are, again, available to have virtual meetings via Zoom. We could set up really at any time between 8 and 5. We're available to help you think about what Study USA might look like for you and your department. Our website is olemiss.edu/study_USA. But if you just go to the Ole Miss main site and type in Study USA, will be the first thing that pops up there. We will be sharing this video. So if you want to share with your colleagues in your department, that'll be available for you to distribute to maybe someone you may want to collaborate with. We do have a final kind of wrap up poll questions as a follow up to the first poll question we had before. So now that we've shared about our program, and we talked through the process of how to propose a course and the different options you have for building your course, which mode of Study USA will work for the class that you're envisioning?
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you. We're really excited about the possibility of working with you. So again, please let us know. Thank you, Drs. Holland and Watkins, for sharing your experiences. We appreciate y'all sharing about your courses. Any final thoughts, Laura or Kevin?
Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.